Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Aryan Rasoulipour. If you are new here, I'm really glad you found your way to this space where we explore fascinating world of language and linguistics and science of human communication. Today we are diving into a topic that is both incredibly rich, surprising and intuitive once you get the hang of it. Cognitive linguistics. Now, cognitive linguistics is one of those fields that sounds intimidating at first. It has the word cognitive inside it, which makes people think maybe it's about neuroscience laboratories and labs, brain scans, and complicated theories. But, in fact, the truth is, cognitive linguistics is actually one of the most human and accessible approaches to understanding language. It's about how we think about and how we conceptualize the world and how our mind shapes the way we speak and how the way we speak shapes our minds right back. In this video podcast, I'm going to walk you through everything you need to know about cognitive linguistics, about what is it exactly, where it came from, why it matters, how it differs from other linguistic theories, and it explains everyday language phenomena that probably never realized they're deeply connected to human cognition. We are going to talk about metaphors, mental imageries, categories, frames, schemas, embodiments, and so much more. And I promise by the end of this video you will start noticing cognitive linguistics everywhere, in political speeches, in advertising, in your own conversation, and even in the way you think and about abstract ideas like love, time, and morality. So, cognitive linguistics is a branch of linguistics that emerged in the late 20th century as a reactions against more formal, abstract, rule-based approaches to language, especially Noam Chomsky's generative grammar. While generative linguistic grammar focuses on the idea that language is a separate mental module with its rules and structures, cognitive linguistics argues something very different. Language is not separate from the rest of cognitions based on cognitive linguistics. Language is a part of human thinking, and language reflects how we perceive, categorize, and interact with the world. In the other words, cognitive linguistics sees language are deeply connected to perception, memory, attention, imagination, bodily experiences, cultural knowledge, and conceptual structures. Instead of treating language as a set of arbitrary rules, cognitive linguistics treats language as a window into the human mind. The core principles of cognitive linguistics are three functional ideas that almost every cognitive linguistic agrees on. Firstly, language is embodied. What's the meaning of language is embodied? This means that our physical experiences like walking, talking, touching, seeing, moving, shape the way we think and talk. For example, we say, I'm feeling up today. My mood is down. She's at peak of her career. He fell into a depression. These aren't random. They are come from our bodily experiences. Being upright feels good and falling feels bad. And secondly, language is meaningful at every level. Unlike the formal linguistics, which often treats grammar and meaningless structures, cognitive linguistics argue that grammar carries meanings. For example, the difference between I gave him a book and I gave the book to him. It's not only just about grammar variations. In fact, it reflects different conceptualizations of the event. Language is based on usage. We learn language through experiences, not through innate rules. Patterns emerge from repeated exposure, and grammar is shaped by how people actually use language in real life. Cognitive linguistics didn't appear out nowhere. It grew out of dissatisfaction with real linguistic theories. For example, the Noam Chomsky revolutions. In the 1950s, Noam Chomsky proposed that humans have an innate language faculty, a built-in mental module that contains universal grammatical rules. This became known as generative grammar. But by the 1970s and 1980s, many linguists felt that generative grammar was too abstract, too disconnected from meaning, and too focused on idealized sentences rather than real language in use practically. Enter cognitive linguistics, three major shapes that fields by George Lakoff, known for conceptual metaphor theories, Ronald Langjacker, founder of cognitive grammar, and Leonard Tolmie, known for work on conceptual structures and forces dynamics. These scholars argue that language cannot be separated from meaning, culture, and cognitions. They emphasize that grammar is meaningful, metaphors are conceptual, and linguistic patterns reflect mental patterns. To understand cognitive linguistics, it helps us to compare it with other linguistic theories. For example, first theories that should be compared and juxtaposed to cognitive linguistics is generative linguistics by Noam Chomsky, as I mentioned before. Generative linguistics sees language as innate, focuses on syntax, treats meaning as secondary, and emphasizes universal grammar that, on the other hand, cognitive linguistics disagree with all of this. Second approach is structuralism, that is on the opposite of the cognitive linguistics, focuses on language as a system of signs, emphasizes the structure over cognitions. Cognitive linguistics says structures emerge from cognitions, not by themselves, and something like this. The next approach is behaviorism. Focuses on stimulus, response patterns, and ignorance of mental process. Cognitive linguistics is explicitly mentalistic. So, the next approach that should be considered here is functional linguistics. Focuses on communication and functions in language. It's more closer to cognitive linguistics rather than other approaches, but cognitive linguistics goes further by grounding function in mental process. And conceptual metaphor theory is one of the most famous part of cognitive linguistics that developed by George Lakoff and Mark Johnson in their books, which is Metaphors We Live By. Metaphors we live by. The big idea is here, the metaphors are not just poetic and decorative figures of speech. They are all fundamental on how we think, and they are crucial to understand them, to understand how we think and how our talks shaped. We use metaphors constantly, often without realizing it. For example, time is money. It's a metaphor. You are wasting my time. I don't have enough time. That meeting cost me an hour. Or another example, argument is a war. He shut down my argument. She defended her positions. Your claims are indefensible. Again, it's a metaphor. Or another example, love is a journey. Another metaphor in our daily talk and speech. We are at a crossroad. Our relationship is going nowhere. We have come a long way. These metaphors shape how we understand abstract concepts. Why metaphors matters? Metaphors influences political framing, moral reasoning, and emotional understanding, cultural differences, everyday decision making, and for example, describing a crime as a beast versus a virus leads people to support different policies, something like this. And image schemas are recurring patterns of bodily experiences that structure our thinking. For example, container like this path, balance, up, down, front, back, center, referee. These schemas came from physical experiences but shape abstract thoughts. Example, okay, I give you some example. The container schema. We say, I'm in trouble. She's out of danger. He's in love. They're out of ideas. Trouble, danger, and love and ideas are not literal containers, but we conceptualize them as such. And categorization and prototypes. Traditional linguistics assume categories have clear boundaries. Cognitive linguistics says that they are opposite. For example, prototypes theory explains and claims categories have central members and peripheral members. For example, category of birds. The prototype birds are robin, sparrow, eagles. Less typically, penguins and ostrich. And even less typically, mole, bat. As I know, it's not a bird biologically, it's a mammal, but often confused. Okay, why prototypes are matter? It explains why some words are harder to define, why categories are vary across the culture, and how children learn language, how metaphor extend categories, and frame and schemas. Frames are mental structures that shape how we interpret situation. For example, the restaurant frame includes entering, being seated, and ordering, eating, paying, leaving. If someone says, the waiter brought the wrong dish, you automatically activate the restaurant frame in your mind. Frames explains how we understand the stories, how we feel the missing informations, and how we political language shape thoughts. And about embodiment, embodiment is the idea that our bodies shape our minds. For example, we associate up with good because standing upright it feels good in most of the languages. We associate warmth with affection because being held as an infant is a warm. We associate closeness with intimacy because physically closeness correlates with emotional closeness. Embodiment explains why metaphors are not arbitrary. They are coming from physical experiences of our daily life. And the cognitive grammar As Ronald Langjacker proposed, the grammar is not a set of rules but a set of symbolic structures. The key ideas of this theory and approach is that grammar is meaningful. Grammar emerges from usage. Grammar reflects conceptualizations. And for example, the difference between glass broke and I broke the glass reflects the control of the events. And control, as I mentioned here, we should explain it. Control refers to how we choose the mental represents as a situation in a specified situations. For example, level of detail. He walked. He strolled slowly along the beach. And perspective as a control. The cat is under the table. The table is over the cat. Figure versus ground. There is a bed on the branch. There is a branch under the bed. Same situation, different controls. Force dynamics. Leonard Talmy introduced force dynamics to explain how we conceptualize interaction of force. Example, I resisted the temptation. She pushed me to do it. He forced the issue. I couldn't stop myself. They are not literal forces. They are conceptual forces. And cognitive semantics. Cognitive semantics studies how meaning is structured in the mind. The key concepts of cognitive semantics are meaning is conceptual, meaning is embodied, and also meaning is dynamic, and meaning is context dependent. Words do not have fixed meanings. They activate network of concepts, and cognitive linguistics argues that children learn language through patterns recognitions, analogy, categorizations, embodied experiences, and social interaction, not through innate grammar. And application of cognitive linguistics is used in artificial intelligence, or in the other word, cognitive linguistics is usable in artificial intelligence development, education, psychotherapy, political communication, marketing, copywriting, translation, and second language teaching. For example, teaching metaphors helps us teachers and learners understand abstract vocabularies. And some criticism about cognitive linguistics are lack of formal models, difficulty of testing metaphors empirically, and sometimes it is too broad. It's not a niche and narrow down at all. Sometimes it's too interpretive, but cognitive linguistics can continue to grow and influence many fields. And finally, why cognitive linguistics matters? Cognitive linguistics helps us to understand how language shapes thoughts, how culture shapes meaning, and how metaphors influence politics, how grammar reflects cognitions, and how humans conceptualize the world. It gives us tools to analyze not just language, but human experience itself. Conclusion. To sum up, so that's a deep, detailed exploration of cognitive linguistics, what it is, how it works, and why it matters. I hope this gave you a clear understanding of how language and thoughts are intertwined and cooperate to each other, and how cognitive linguistics provides a powerful framework for understanding both. If you are enjoyed, please don't forget to like this video podcast, subscribe my channel, and push the notification for further video that I will upload throughout this channel. If you have any question, you can respond in comment box. Now, I have some questions from you. What's your idea about conceptual blending and constructural grammar and linguistic relativity based on this podcast? answer my questions if you prefer on the comment box. Until the next time, farewell, goodbye, and good luck.